All right. Hi, everyone, and a very warm welcome to our webinar today with the title being How to Find the Right Resource Management Tool. And I'm your host, Nora. I'm so happy to welcome you today. I work as a transformation consultant, helping teams design better and more human-centered ways of working, ones that support collaboration, transparency, and sustainable growth. And today's topic is one that sits right at the heart of all three. This session is part of Runn's Leap webinar series, where we spotlight bold ideas and practical strategies shaping the future of resource management. And Runn is a purpose-built tool to make capacity and resource planning smarter, faster, and more human. In our session today, we will use the last 15 minutes for any questions and answers. So I invite all of you in our virtual room today listening along to reflect on how this could translate to you, what challenges you might be facing, and capture any questions that pop up in the Q&A section of a Zoom webinar. Also, feel free to use the chat for any comments, thoughts, ideas, best practices that you have encountered. So let's really make this an interactive session. You can also use some reactions here in Zoom webinar if you would like to just let us know that you're there. And it's my absolute pleasure to introduce today's speaker, Csaba Muha. Csaba leads governance and operations for Ollion across the Asia Pacific region, working at the intersection of strategy, delivery, and people. With a career spanning governance, operations, and resource management, he knows and is known for bringing teams together across different functions and helping them scale without losing their soul. He has a passion for operational excellence that actually supports well-being and culture, not just numbers on a spreadsheet. And at Ollion, Csaba played a key role in unifying teams post-acquisition and finding a resource management solution that works for real people, not just data. So Csaba, we're so thrilled to have you with us today. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Nice. And with that, let's jump right into our conversation. So, Csaba, what really stood out to me in the conversations we've had so far is that you have such a depth of expertise when it comes to resource management tools. How did you become the expert you are today? Can you share your story with us? And as the resource management space also keeps evolving, things move on. What do you do? Who do you turn to for fresh ideas? Stay up to date with best practices.
Absolutely. Thanks for the kind words and the introduction. Your words are very humbled and very, very sweet. So to reflect your question, like how did I ended up where I am? It's a lot of tears and sweat. So I'm a delivery professional by degree and also by profession. So I went through on the traditional path of project management, portfolio management, delivery management, then managing other resources. Then of course it has financial impacts, invoices, strategy, etc., etc. And when you are when you're working in different organizations and you are using the project management tools, the timesheet management tools, dealing with resource requests, and then, of course, as you progress in your career, getting questions around revenue recognition, invoicing, what are the costs, what are the profitabilities. You just go through on the pain of the restriction of most of the enterprise resource planning tools. So, in the absence of anything, you have to understand what exactly other departments are doing and a little bit start playing on their field and getting better understanding, looking for better tools. It leads to just a better understanding of what does it mean, what does one time entry means the whole organization. And back to your question that where do I look for fresh ideas? uh, we have to have fresh ideas because the industry is changing.
Mhm.
So I think in this space, one of the biggest challenges that most of the tools what we adopt, we like to fix rather than replace.
Mm.
And that's just a natural, engineering culture that let's try to fix something which doesn't work, and let's build workarounds. But sometimes you have to make a decision that, what, maybe it is time to just scrape what we had, look for something state of art, and take a whole pivotal approach. And in Ollion, what the challenge what we had at hand, it was pretty much that. So as you mentioned, we had multiple rounds of acquisition. We brought together 5 companies in essentially 3 different regions. One is in Southeast Asia, in India, and also in North America. We talk about hundreds of people, 5 companies, a lot of legacy tools, a lot of legacy way of approaching how basic things are being done. For example, pricing, for example, offering, uh, resource planning, uh, not even talking about the proposals of whether it's fixed price, whether it's time and material, whether it's managed services. And in our first attempt, when we brought everyone into a same umbrella, into an enterprise resource tool, uh, it was outrageously expensive.
Mhm.
And not just, and that's where the if you're asking the right questions, you're getting the right answers. Tool is just one thing, but what does it cost us to run? I'm Well, pun intended, but like, what does it cost to operate our resource tooling? And is it really the best setup to have a dedicated team sitting somewhere else to tell what someone's team is going to do when the team size is only 5 and they are working in complete synergy? Why do we need a separate entity, a separate team, a separate authority to go through on a very bureaucratic way of raising one request, justifying the other request, then assigning, then approving, then controlling, etc., etc.? What is the actual human cost of it? And
Right.
I mean, it's not really a surprise. It is a lot. So
Mhm.
when you are looking for synergies after a merger, uh, we had to have a good look of what is the total cost of ownership, how we are dealing with resource management, not just the tool itself. And we come to the conclusion that we have to completely redesign what we have. And that was the time when I got the opportunity to go deep on this topic. And it was a coincidence because I was writing my executive MBA studies. It was coming to the end, so it was a perfect capstone project for me to really go into that if I would do a modern resource management tool or resource or an approach like to this, then what are the key success factors, KPIs, OKRs, strategic initiatives, market forces, which we have to factor in. And some of them are obvious, like good usability, good UI, responsive web design. But some of them are a little bit more unorthodox, as probably the buying persona is different than the persona who needs to be pleased, because how the information is populated versus how it's operated, that's 2 different things. And it created a very interesting intersect of sorting out resource management tools which were very obvious choices, and opening up the space for resource management tools, for example, Runn, which were quite pioneering at that time.
Nice. So let me just double click on that. That really stood out to me, and I think that's quite unique that you had the opportunity to really dive into selecting, evaluating resource management tools thanks to your executive MBA. So you had a time period of a few months, I believe it was, where you actually got to really become an expert in this field. And I find
Yes.
that super exciting because you probably have an expertise that only few people around the world have, really diving into the different requirements, the different options of resource management tools. So
Well, I'm really flattered. Thank you, Nora. That I really try to live up to that expectation. But look, the reality is that the way how I positioned resource management, ironically for us, it is not a resource management tool. And if someone is asking what is Runn for us, I would say that this is our central tool for center of excellence, for source of truth, for any kind of financial data. If it is not in Runn, it doesn't exist. And whatever is in Runn, and we have some other data somewhere else, then Runn takes priority because that's the source of truth. Why? In a professional services business or in a managed services business or just in general in a business where we're dealing with people, our assets, what we are selling, are time. So both of our cost is linked to time allocation, and also our profits are linked to time allocations because we need to sell it to other clients, either as part of a fixed price project, as a billable hour, or in a very transactional way as a time and material rate card driven exercise. So I raised the question that what is the expectation for a timesheet tool, essentially? And it's very easy to go down the path of like, oh, I just need someone to fill up what you have done. But when you're realizing that what is the actual what is the driver of that information? That information get picked up by the project managers, by the team leads, by the portfolio leads. It goes into our forecasts on revenue forecast, cost forecast. It goes into invoicing. It also goes to any kind of customer dispute. And of course, on the pre-sale side, you need to know what capacity you have and where you have to hire. So all of a sudden, the same information pillar impacts all the other supportive operations like HR, finance, even legal, all the way to executive management, to, again, operation, business unit leads, general managers, and all the way to CFO level. So if we make the time entry difficult, then there's no way that you're going to get an accurate view. So usually the buying persona for a resource management tool is, or we are buying a resource management tool, but actually what we need is the executive level summary. So what I realized is that we don't need a BI tool, because it's still feeding, like, it still need data. And where is the data coming from? From the people who are interacting with the tools. So that was a twisted, I would say, unusual way to approach the selection criteria, where we really sat down who are the persona who we want to please, what are the important things, what they like, what they dislike, what they care about, and what they don't. And based on that, we went through on a whole bunch of assessment, assessing all kind of vendors, just to quickly verify who is in our playground in the first place.
Exactly. And we're very grateful because you actually shared with us some of the kind of analysis you have done as part of your executive MBA and the evaluation process. And this is basically the persona work that was the first step on the evaluation process, as you have just alluded to. Can you just maybe share one or two example personas with us and how you work through their needs? I think this is a very nice approach.
Yes, I mean, this is a persona analysis. It's usually with any kind of postgrad strategy. In one shape or form it comes up. But what I like to highlight is that sometimes it's more important to focus on what we don't want rather than what we want, because it's very easy to say that just looking at the column F of like, what do we want? Accurate forecasting. Of course, everyone wants accurate forecasting, right? Like, or I want an ideal situation where my resource demand and supply in perfect balance, where I don't have utilization issues. These are all utopia. So I can't, there's no perfect solution. So it's more important to focus on what is not important. What are the sacrifices what we are perfectly happy to live with. And for example, for a business lead, accurate forecasting is important, but they don't want to be involved in day-to-day operations. So on one end, they want to know exactly who is working on what without knowing who is working on what, if you know what I mean. They don't need to be as part of the process. They just want the dashboard at the end.
Exactly.
But that's a pickle situation because you want to have the depth without being on the trenches. Similarly, for example, on the finance team, they want to be able to reconcile their finance books and all the nuances around their actual invoices, actual cost, the statutory accounting, but they don't care about, and they shouldn't care about what is going on project level, because that's all arbitrary from a finance angle. At the end of the day, they should match, right? And that's where the trickiness comes. And it almost comes down to like a philosophy level, like how much cost information you share across the departments. And at Ollion, one of our key principles is that it's open by default. We made it as part of our culture that we are working with adults and we are hiring adults. So we are expecting them to know what they should see and what they should not see, and understanding how our business work and how do we make money is an absolute key requirement for all of our staff. Otherwise, you can't expect them to work in the company's interest. So it doesn't mean that everyone has to know everyone's salary, but when you go to cost and revenue and margin, there is a balance to that. So that's where the bit of a financial education and financial acumen, I don't know, brown bag sessions for within the company comes handy. So just to wrap up, it's equally important to focus on what is not important and also what makes them sad, because people are remembering their pains much better than what makes them happy. So if you lay down this kind of metrics, then what you go is that, okay, if the first one, if it makes the business leader sad that the forecasts are off and that they got uncomfortable questions on board meetings because they got last minute questions, then the tool what we are looking for has to give them the confidence that they are, again, I didn't say that they have to be accurate. They have to be comfortable with the data, which means you can't be comfortable if you are relying on someone else's analysis. You have to be able to dive into your data set by yourself, especially with the, since ChatGPT and the generative AIs are on, it's very difficult to sell internally that you can only get access to your data if you go to someone and then you request and then someone give it to you. But if you request it in the wrong format, then you got the wrong question and then you have to repeat it. The real life business is faster than that. So one of the key feature what Runn has and Runn really excels is the diverse reporting capabilities and groupings. So you don't need the raw data to be exported and stored as a snapshot just to do a pivot table or an aggregation. You can do it with real-time data. You can save it and without the complexity of a BI tool, for example. So that was definitely a selecting criteria.
I love it. So persona first, understanding who are the key people that have an interest in the resource management tool. What do they want? What's important? But equally, what do they not want? What's not important to them? That's a key learning that I'm taking away from your words. Also understanding what they don't want is equally helpful. I love also the idea of understanding what makes them happy and what makes them sad. It's a more emotional approach, and then basically deriving what does this mean in terms of feature and key functionalities that we need. When we look at the persona list, it's quite the list. We've got
Yes.
7 personas, if I counted correctly in here.
Yes.
From your approach, Csaba, did you find that some personas were more important than others? Is there almost like a ranking that we could make in terms of where to focus?
It's very interesting. That depends who is the who has the money.
Well,
So
finance, right?
well, actually not necessarily.
I see.
So depends on well, of course, when you are selecting a tool, there's always an internal business sponsor.
Hmm.
And let me rewind for 2 or 3 steps just to make it sense. So we have 7 personas, and they have pain points. The pain points are different in terms of like how painful it is, that what is the severity. So usually whoever has the biggest pain point comes to a conclusion that, okay, it's unbearable, I want to fix it, I will become the internal sponsor, and I will find the right tool which solves my pain point, and I try to find allies by identifying what other pain points they are solving.
Right.
So for us, uh, financials were an issue, but the biggest pain point was on the business leads side, because the executives, they were pushing the responsibility on the business leads that it's your team, you have to know what's going on, you are responsible for the numbers, don't expect a financial analyst to tell you what your business is going to do. But it comes down to company culture. If at that time we would have a different CFO, and if they would want to have a much more controlled approach, then the business persona, the buying persona would be much more finance and operation related. For us, it was pretty much row number 3 and 4, the business lead and the delivery lead,
Hmm.
because our organizational setup was expecting these 2 people to run the business. Everyone else is working for them. So when I had to position and when we come up with the ranking, it was very important that we make sure that these personas are not uh, their pain points are being addressed, and
Hmm.
they have something in the solution which makes them happy, interested, and instead of just making them as a neutral position, they become a supporter. And once you have this position, then all the only thing what you need is that the rest of the persona should not be a distractor.
Hmm.
They should be at least neutral. So what make them sad is very important. You don't necessarily have to make them happy, but make sure that they are not sad. And
Okay.
yeah, so
So what
the ranking depends on the company situation. For us, it was the business leader.
Yeah, so one thing I'm taking away from your beautiful answer is it depends on the context, it depends on where the money is coming from, it depends on who has the biggest pain and is the driver for change. And what would be very smart is to identify allies across the
Yes.
business and people who might experience the same or a similar pain, and for those other stakeholders who might not. Yeah, be on the same page. Make sure that the solution at least does not make them worse off.
Yeah.
Understand what makes
Yes.
them sad, and hopefully the solution will yeah, improve or at least be neutral on them. Cool. So this was the starting point, really diving into the personas, what they need across the business, a whole variety of different personas, as we can see. Thank you so much for giving us some background on this. Now, what's the next step that you took? And I'm going to jump onto this second page that you shared with us. I think this is very,
Yes.
very valuable. And just for everyone listening right now, Csaba kindly shared this with you, and we're also happy to share it with you post webinar. So, yeah, this is our little treasure that we got from Csaba. Thank you for it. So, yeah, what can we see here? How can this help?
Yes. So, well, if for for those who never selected a completely new vendor product, um, any kind of vendor selection is messy because it takes a lot of effort both on the selector side and also the on the presentation side. So I could be a little bit too honest of that, but after the fifth, sixth, 10th demo session, an evaluator's patient to listen to all the company stories are a little bit running thin. So there are key functions and key features which you have to just get out of the way to quickly qualify whether a solution is even remotely comparable or not. That also tells a lot about the company itself, whether it's a right fit for innovation and collaboration, or they are pushing a very salesy approach. So yeah, in general, I was not really a fan of going behind, hiding behind let's schedule a call, call to action buttons. So we essentially created a scorecard, which was a feature list and requirements from all the different personas, but it's not weighted because different personas have different lists, right? However, we had a few very critical must-haves, which for us it was revenue recognition, time entries, what else? Ease of use, no training required, and and real-time project level and portfolio level financial insights. So the way how I used these kind of setups is to go through on multiple vendors, of course, do our assessment, just like any kind of vendor assessment, and get a feel of where that solution fits, whether it's strong, whether it's weak, what are the challenges around, where do we see that there's a potential risk for a vendor lockdown, what is the philosophy around customization or accessing the underlying data, and in some cases how reliable the company is. And I have to tell you that although no one really want to admit, legal departments and compliance departments are valuing a small company versus big company differently, because if things go wrong, you have much better chance to sue a big company, although they're not going to pay you. But if you go to a small company, you can win the deal, but they can't pay you. So going through on the terms and conditions, on the philosophy, on what is the background of the company matters as well. We have seen tailor-built solution where the whole company was done by 2 or 3 people, very startup-y. At one point, we can't, it's too much liability to bring a small company and build all the operation backbone on something which can go bust within 6 months if they are, they're not raising the next level of fundings. So the customer footprint was also very important.
Right.
Again, it's a combination of all other things. So what you can see here is just so I can talk about the sheet as well. Based on the personas, we have identified function areas, and based on the function areas, there are specific features like, again, basic must-haves, timesheet tracking, financials, what do we need, enterprise functionalities, unique features. So just to have a comparable feature set, and then we probably screened 20 plus applications, and then started to narrow it down from there. And of course, the pricing and value for price, that was a very important factor, and the whole total cost of ownership. How much does it cost for us to run that tool?
Very nice. Awesome. So based on the personas, the different requirements, features were basically laid out, and then you mapped each tool that you looked at in accordance to how well it would fit. And I believe you took a scale from 1 if the feature was only represented in a weak way to 5 a very strong feature representation. Is that right? This was the scale.
Correct. But it's more art than science, right? Like it's very easy to say that, oh, it's very strong, or like, oh, it's very weak. But how do you define a 2 versus a 3, or a 3 versus a 4? In the big scheme of things, it doesn't matter. And that was the direction, that it doesn't have to be accurate, because when you have, I don't know how many, probably close to 100 data points, and you put some conditional formatting on there, uh, it literally paints the story. Where are the reds? Where are the greens? Then you check it against pricing, and then you have a very clear top 3, top 4. And then when it comes to selection, then you can actually focusing on, okay, which persona exactly they are pleasing, what are the features where we have to sacrifice. It's usually never about like, okay, it's a strong 5 or a weak 1. It's always somewhere in between.
Nice, awesome. Just a heads up to our audience, we're almost approaching our Q&A time. So feel free to reflect on your situation, your curiosity. This is your unique chance to ask Csaba, who has gone through this process in a very elegant way, any questions, maybe to also share your case briefly and ask for advice. So yeah, feel free to start capturing questions now. Now is the perfect moment. And I'm curious also for organizations that are struggling to find the right resource management tool, what advice would you give to them? Are there any early indicators that a tool or process might not be the right fit?
Well, yes, of course. So early indicator is that well, it's more like an advice. Go with the tool and the company which lets you try, because nothing, like whatever you see on demo, it's going to work differently with your data set, with your integrations, with your processes. You might going to have certain departments what others don't have. You might going to use certain features which others don't have. Do you have resource managers? I don't know. Do you have contractors? Do you have, how is your financing processing works? Is that offline? How integrated is your end-to-end invoicing happens? How well do you want to isolate or integrate these functions to have a single source of truth, or quite the opposite, you want to separate it, and you want the option to handle the permissions much better. Get these requirements straight in your assessment, and when you are doing selections, ask the vendor for a hands-on tryout. Bring your sample data or your actual data, and don't even consider a tool if you don't have the chance to try out, because you're gonna run into incompatibilities very soon. And that also tells a lot of, or at least for me, it's a try and buy, always more convincing than listen to presentations and well-tailored, a nicely tightly tied necktie presentations and demo with pre-sales experts. They know what to hide. That's their profession. Go with something that you can try. Runn is one of the few companies who you can just spin up your own environment, get a look and feel, and once you like it and you have questions, then you can have an actual educated conversation on how can you overcome some of your challenges, rather than go through an initial date of what did you do, what do you want, what are you looking for, what's the industry. It is very tiring if you're going through 30 plus vendors. So that's one. The second, the early signs, don't go with a company ever in today's age if they lock your data. There is always monetization challenges and incentivization. It's very common with bigger players. That's how they can build up their financial tiers. Make sure that you own your data, and have a plan B. What happens when there is a CrowdStrike shutdown and you don't have access to your data, and and you have to reboot everything from scratch. What is your resiliency plan?
Mm. Can you
That's
just
very
maybe
important.
elaborate for people who are not as technical like me? How can we understand quickly whether a company would lock in our data versus not?
Well, if I mean, if you have the access to export your data in a CSV, that's absolute must have. But
Mhm.
in today's day and age, to have an API which you can integrate with your data lake or data warehouse, where you can do snapshots on a regular basis, uh, that's not something what should be a very high premium feature. Without naming other companies, in the market leaders on the ERP, it's very easy to sign up, very easy to bring your data, but it's extremely difficult to take it off. And the moment that you are not signing up for renewals, they keep all your contacts, all your deal information, especially on the CRM side. So why is it a problem on the resource management side? Because it's not going to cause an issue for you right now, but at the end of the month, well, end of the year, when the auditors come and they're going to ask, why did you recognize $55,000 in March in two years ago? And then you have to say that, well, because my percentage of completion based on the calculation, it was X and Y. You need the data. So it's otherwise you're going to get into compliance issues and the auditor is going to fine you. So you can't tie this information and archival to active license subscription. That's a operational
Mhm.
risk.
Wow, that's such a good watch out. Thank you very much for sharing. And I can see the first question is just coming in. So I would like to present this to you. Thank you, Victoria, for sharing it. So, when selecting a resource management tool, we consistently face challenges with role assignment. In our company, one person can hold multiple roles simultaneously, sometimes within the same project and sometimes across different projects. This makes it very difficult to measure the actual capacity per role. Aha. Do you have any suggestions on how to handle this, or have you come across any tool that can effectively address this scenario? Great question.
Yes, I'm Victoria. Thanks for the question. I think you're in the right forum if you're looking for a tool for that scenario, because Runn handles it very elegantly and perfectly. So what we have overcome is that, of course, you have your role defined, and the way how we define roles are following a certain syntax. So it has not just a very generic role of, for example, DevOps engineer, but one role is actually carrying the information of location, function, seniority. And we use the role for defining our standard costs. So that rolls up the capacity, but we are also assigning them into a functional groups. So for example, if I have DevOps engineer 1, 2, 3, those are roles, but those are getting linked into teams. So when we are checking capacity and utilization, we always group it up on teams level, and it also gives you the opportunity to play with different placeholders, because of course you can have some nuanced differences between associate and senior, or do I need lead or something else. And on your other question of how you handle, like, one resource can have multiple roles on a project, uh, again, with Runn, you can easily do that. You can assign the same person with different roles. The person is carrying their own default cost based on their person-based role, but on the project they can play different roles, and then based on a rate card they can be charged as a lower or higher, or even neutral cost center. So if that all doesn't work, then you have work streams, which gives you an additional groupings in Runn, and then and a different way to slice your data, so you can add teams, add different people into certain work streams, and manage their capacity, their budget, and their demand on a work stream level, both on the reporting and also on the project level. That's something very handy on in Runn. So I can highly recommend. If you have this scenario, then Nora now is getting into a sales pitch, but it is really a purpose-built tool. So then you will be happy with that.
Awesome. Both, thank you very much to Victoria for your question and you, Csaba, for your answer. That's awesome. And I can see that another question just came in. Thank you so much. Thank you. This has all been very interesting. My question is, what would be a red flag when dealing with a software vendor? And what's a green flag?
Green flag, several. One of the green flag is that if a software vendor understands what role they are playing in the organization and they are flexible enough on their pricing, that's a huge green flag. What do I mean? Any kind of software, especially a resource management tool, need implementation, migration, and adoption. You're not going to get value right after you sign the contract, simply because you are impacting so many people and also so many processes. So if a company understands that there is a scaling effect, rather than try to milk you from the way where you are signing, that's a huge green flag. And it could mean trial period, it could mean an additional pilot, it could mean a 4-6 weeks sandbox implementation just to make the team comfortable before you activate the license. These are very important green flags. On the other end, if a company is pushing you to pay 10 years license before you get the license key and before you've done any kind of integration on the day when you are checking it out, that was fine 10 years ago. It's not in 2025. So don't do that.
Nice. Any other red flags apart from that?
Well, data privacy is definitely, or like access to your data. Customization, or, well, how should I say that? There's no business on earth, especially not in 2025, who is not changing. Just in our business, probably we will rename practices, cost centers, groupings, reporting lines, roles, markets. If you go through a merger and acquisition, then it can expand, it can shrink, it can go up and down. So it will limit your chance to run your business if you are relying on an external vendor and you need development to do these kind of things. So most of the, well, if I simplify it, pay attention for the admin functions. Don't just focusing on the fancy UI and the user interface. Think about how can you manage your application through the admin without touching the code base, because otherwise you're gonna get into all kind of vendor lock-in, skill lock-in. The last thing what you want is to keep someone in your organization because they know a very specific language which no one else, and if that person leaves, then you're not going to pass an audit. So that's a hostage situation.
Right. So the ability to change names
to manage your operation without going to the code level.
Yeah, nice. Thank you so much for the green and red flags. And there is another beautiful question that just came in. Looking 2 to 3 years ahead, what's one shift in professional services you think will completely change how we plan resources and run business? Great question.
That it is a very good question. Cool. Let me think about it. AI is definitely shaping our world on the professional services side, and if I would want to put my bet somewhere, then I would say that resources are going to be more expensive, and because of that, the need for timely accounting and explaining what has happened, who is working on what, is going to be more required on the professional services setup. So while a couple of years ago it was very common and accepted to treat someone as a full-time employee and just sell it as a contractor rate because they were not available on the market. Right now, you are not competing with the resource markets. You are also competing on creating agents and virtual resources who can do similar stuff. So at one point, these two are going to merge and blend. And I'm pretty sure that in a resource management tool, for example, in Runn, we had this chat with the product management team recently, that in a couple of years, you will see agents as virtual resources. And they're going to come with cost because there is a LLM behind, and it comes with a different cost base. So how you manage sort of either contractors is pretty much the same thing, but how do you manage and not just assigning, but how do you manage the cost of a virtual resource? I think that's going to be the challenge of professional services in the next probably 2 to 5 years, especially in tech.
Wow, fascinating. So a hybrid team of humans and agents, AI agents.
Yes.
Nice. That's an outlook for sure. Thank you so much for the question, and thank you, Shava, for your answer. Oh, there was another a few questions actually. That's exciting. Thank you so much to those questions. So Ravi says, so hi Ravi, nice to see you, a regulatory webinar. How about capturing RAG, project health score? So within project accounting. Um, yeah, what's your perspective on that, Shava?
Important, but interpretation is more important.
Just clarifying, RAG stands for red, amber, green, and it's basically the traffic light system for a project. Are we red, something urgent
Yes.
needs to happen, there is an escalation needed. Amber, on track, but something might be coming up soon. In green, we're in flow, all tracking accordingly, right? That's the RAG.
That's the textbook's definition. Yes. The
Mhm.
reality is more like every project is a watermelon. If it's up to the project manager, like it's green on the outside and it's red in the inside.
Okay.
And the other funny but true story is that if you go with standard definitions, for example, okay, if it's green, if it's on track, if you are below a certain threshold, then it's amber. With that kind of definition, you're never going to recover. So
Mhm.
what you're going to see is that you start with a green project. On week 2, it's going to turn into red, and then it's going to be red all the way until you finish, because there's no differentiation if it's 2% off or 100% off. So when it comes to reg, what we are applying is that we are comparing it at least against two metrics. One
Mhm.
is what is the current situation? How does it compare to the baseline where you're supposed to be? But how does it compare to last month? What is the
Mhm.
trend? Am I getting better? Like I can be completely red and then getting better, but don't just use reg, quantify it. uh,
Mhm.
because otherwise you're going to see that, well, it's red, trending amber. Next month, well, it's actually red, trending amber. Then next month, well, it's not amber, it's red, trending amber. You're not going to see the results. So uh, it is very important to get a high level visibility, but I would suggest to try to quantify and color code the variances against two metrics: baseline and your previous period, whether you are comparing to last month or one previous quarter or the previous average of the last 3 months. Doesn't matter, but focus on these two.
Very nice. Thank you. That's super helpful. Ravi, if you have any follow-up questions, feel free to share them. Thanks already for the beautiful question and answer. Then I'm going to do my very best to pronounce your name correctly. Oluwafemi. Hopefully, that was all right. So thank you. You're sharing. It is such a pleasure to be here. It's such a pleasure to have you. I heard the facilitator, so me, talk about finances, ERP, or maybe you,
Yes.
as a human resource personnel with no background knowledge in finances, can you smoothly come into resource management space? So that's maybe also tapping into your personal.
So, so the answer is that yes, because the reality is that finance doesn't have the in-depth on the human resources place. So the sooner you accept that these are not silos and they have to work together, and resource management, not resource manager, the resource management cut across the whole verticals, you actually have a lot of common grounds. So you're just looking at differently on HR side, you have a persona, an FTE, a headcount, while on the finance side you have monthly cost, tax, bonuses, etc. But essentially, on one end, you're talking about names, the others are probably employee IDs. But you can easily transition because there are a lot of common grounds, especially if you bring all your information into a into a into a sheet or into a resource management tool. Then all of a sudden you can see the same data from two different persona point of view, and you will have less arguments.
Nice. Awesome. So that's encouraging. Thank you, Shaba. The second question is, can we merge delivery management which cut across products, quality and customer satisfaction with resource management?
Answer is yes. Yes. So again, principles. Ollion and myself are on the pro side or promoter side of enabling the delivery management to run their own business. And if we have any kind of resource manager, it's which we don't have, by the way. We have operators who are supporting them, because we are going with the principle that you know what you need for your projects. You know how to deal with the team leads who have the resources who you need. They can assess much better on what skills they have, uh, what's going on in their personal life, whether they're up for challenges, whether they're burned out, etc., etc. Scale is important. If you have thousands of people, it is very different. When you are in the low hundreds, like 1 to 300, most of the time you are ending up with a team manager who have 5 to 10 people. They know exactly what's going on their end. You don't need a very outsider point of view to say who's going to be on leave, who is available. Put it in the system and let's make sure that everybody's reading the same information.
Amazing. And my wonderful colleague Arena is just pointing out that we have a lot of valuable contact on the Run blog as well. So yeah, she has just shared the link. Maybe just make sure to send it to everyone, Arena. So feel free to check it out. Maybe some more treasures to be found for you in there. Thank you, Shaba, very much for the answer. And there's one third and final part to the question, which is, what are the professional courses one can embark on to enable professional competency in resource management? Great question. I love any question about learning and how to leap together. So one answer is this webinar series, Leap. It's free.
Yes.
It's for you to grow and learn in resource management. What else have you found useful, Shaba?
Understanding offerings and what the business is doing. What are the business challenges? When we make a governance or compliance regulation internally that you can only book someone in 50% capacity or 100% capacity, why do we do that? And it's quite common that someone is saying that, oh yeah, but I only need 4 days of work. I don't need 5. Why do I need to pay for someone who is on 5? Well, because I can't sell the remaining 1 day. So the total cost of that person is not 4 days, it's 5. And it is very different if someone is working on an hourly contract or a monthly contract or on a yearly contract. Once you have if you are going on to the yearly level, then you have all kind of complications around leaves, public holidays, working times, sick leaves, other kind of stuff. So you can't just do the resource management as an operative task without context. That would be very low value, especially if you have a tool which is very easy for a business user or for a practitioner to do, like add resource, update resource, play what if scenarios that, okay, if I hire one person and if this person leaves, because by the way, Runn has an excellent sandbox environment, which comes as part of the platform, which other tools are charging extra, but they don't. So it's a definite trading point. Understand the business, how you make your resources work, what is the total cost, and how you turn them into value. What course depends on your industry, but understand your business financial acumen. That's going to make you a much better resource manager.
I 100% agree. And I would like to also point out to other very valuable platforms that I would recommend based on my experience. One partner of Runn is the Resource Management Institute. So they have a lot of valuable information and data and courses, the RMI. You can also get resource management professional certified. So this is certainly a course and education to look into if you're wanting to move into this space. And secondly, also a friend of our Leap webinar, Andrea Davis, with her company Linked Workforce, has just launched recently, a few days ago, an academy, a platform to learn more about resource management, to educate, to train, to get better. Perhaps if someone can find it and share it in the chat, Linked Workforce, and their launch. That's also something exciting for the resource management community to look into. Awesome. Well, there is one more question from Victoria in the Q&A. Thank you, Victoria. And I think this will be the last question we can tap into before we will, basically come to an end of this session. So before deciding on a resource management tool, I'm curious about the existing data sources and platforms you already had in your company. Which systems required integration, and were there any tools, for example, Jira, Power BI, project management platforms that became redundant or less useful after the resource management tool was implemented?
100%. So the key primer for, like, besides the fact that people were not satisfied with what we had, they were super expensive. So without tapping into financials, I was running a simple system simplification challenge, more like a project internally, which was aiming to reduce our operating footprint in terms of dollars, what we spent from CRM to resource management to project management tools, and how can we get better value for our buck. We have cut our costs with like 80%. Which was a very, very significant thing. So yes, we made tools redundant. Again, without going into too much details, we are using Jira for project management. We have Monday.com. We have a lot of legacy built tools in Google Sheets and Microsoft Excel. We had HubSpot before. We had professional services automation. We had Certinia. We had Salesforce. Again, it became a long journey because we merged 5 companies together. So every company had their own proprietary tool, and all. Some company, they bought the state-of-art solution. Some company built their own solution. The biggest saving what we had was on not necessarily on the project management side. We kept those tools and we looked for integrations, especially for time reporting and scheduling. But when it comes to the resource management platform, the timesheet entries, the CRM integration,
Very
a
nice.
few plugins, which when you're going with an older solution, then you're ending up buying a lot of plugins, a little bit extra, a little bit extra, a little bit extra. We cut them all. Whatever is not needed, whatever is not making someone happy, unless we can live without it, it must go. To simplify it, if on the header you have 10 different tabs, then it's too much. That's why in Runn you only have like 4 or 5. So keep it
Nice.
simple.
And I think when we talk about resource management tools, it's also helpful to just get a better understanding of what they actually look like. So we have brought a little demo just to give a little bit of a peek into the system. Some of the things that Csaba already talked about might become more vivid and alive once you can have a peek into the tool. So we will just share this 2-minute video for your benefit. And after that, we will round up the session. So yeah, and here is a little demo for you.
Runn is a resource management and capacity planning platform that is really designed to help companies put their people first and do that by optimizing their workforce capacity and also aligning that with their strategic objectives. And one of the things we focus on the most is improving visibility. And what that looks like within Runn is being able to see things from a micro perspective when looking at, maybe an individual resource, like Alan here as an example, being able to quickly understand, okay, why is Alan at 115%? What are we going to do about that? How can we respond to this before this becomes an even bigger problem? And there's means of being able to say, okay, are we going to move that workload out into the future, or do we want to, perhaps transfer that over to another resource that might have a bit more availability? The other perspective, though, is taking a step back and looking at this from more of a macro perspective and really looking at the big picture. And one of the ways that is often done is being able to understand utilization at a higher level. So as an example, if you wanted to understand, okay, what is our utilization across our central skills matrix that we have? What does this look like over the next quarter? What does this look like over the next 6 months? And functionally speaking, this is giving you that view, across your teams, across your skill sets. But strategically and operationally speaking, it's helping break down those silos. Because one of the most common challenges that we hear, and I would say particularly from organizations of a lower maturity, is this information is spread across the organization. They have this information, but it's siloed across various different systems, and there's really no single source of truth. And that's the part that, at Runn, we're trying to help solve. But a lot of this too is around forecasting for the future and having that visibility to be more proactive. And what that looks like in Runn is taking projects that might not have come to fruition. These could be sales opportunities that are in your CRM. These could be initiatives, projects that are still being discussed, but you want to be able to plan for them. You want to be able to understand the impact of taking those projects on. And if we just use skills as an example, and if we turn on all of those tentative projects, we start to have better insight into the future. And we can use this information to plan proactively, where we can see, okay, we have resources that are skilled in Azure, or in this case, C#, and we start to see there's a bit of a spike. So we know, okay, what are we going to do about this? Are we going to go out and hire additional resources that are contractors? Are these going to be short-term projects? We need to make sure that we're hiring resources with those skill sets, and the maturity level increases. You start to gain more of that insight. You start to better position yourself to plan for the future. I think the piece I would wrap it up with, though, is, and we talk about this a lot at Runn, and that is you can find the best tool in the market that checks all your boxes, fits within your budget, check, but unless the team doesn't understand the purpose and the value of the tool, and you don't have that executive buy-in from leadership, it can be very challenging to drive any change at all. So it becomes really important just to make sure that you have those pillars of change planning established very early before you go out and start applying technology to process and start applying technology to your resource management function.
Wonderful. So that was a little peek. Thank you to our colleague Matt, who recorded this demo for us. And most of all, a big heartfelt thank you, Csaba, for your wonderful insights, for your honesty, for openly sharing from your experience. I always find it super inspiring talking with you and just seeing your passion really for the field and all the different levels that you got to gain experience in. So thank you for being here with us.
Thank you, Nora, for having me. It was an absolute pleasure. And yeah, I hope the audience had a good insight of the challenges. And again, I can just definitely recommend, go ahead and give it a try for Runn and try it out by yourself.
Nice. And Irina also just shared the case study with Ollion. So for everyone who's interested just to go a little deeper on how this implementation of Runn has looked like in practice, I would highly recommend it. It's written in a very nice way. And yeah, without further ado, thank you so much. I wish you a beautiful rest of your day wherever you are in the world. Thank you everyone who joined us today. Thanks for all the questions and the engagement. It's been really, really wonderful to spend this time with you all. Take care. Goodbye.